Hello, everybody. So this video is covering chapter 9 of our promo text titled The Internet. I do want to offer a little bit of a caveat here and a little warning. One of the reasons we have the book is it's a a very affordable kind of book. But one of the downside of it too is a little dated, and I think that's nowhere more evident than this chapter. We're talking about a book that was actually written about 10 years ago. So as you can imagine, a lot has changed with regard to the internet in the last 10 years. So while I'm going to cover some of the stuff we talk about here, I'm going to try and offer also some alternate statistics, or at least some more modern statistics or looks of the idea of the internet as we would see it more today in the world of marketing and advertising than necessarily the way that the book would present it. What I will promise to you, though, is that some of the more technical stuff that it references in here is going to be stuff you're not going to see on a quiz or a test. So I'm not going to make you try and learn outdated material, but maybe some of the more core concepts might be in play. So just kind of know that as we talk about this, and we start changing our look from maybe what was traditional advertising, more media advertising, to looking at the internet and how that has impacted everything that we do in the world of advertising and marketing. So with that, we're going to talk about this idea of integrated marketing communications, how that's pulled the internet into it, and frankly, today it's a driving force of what it is, a driving force for communications. It's that new medium. We'll talk a little about promotions on the web, a little bit about websites, establishing them, and we'll look forward to the future and what does 2020 and beyond bring to all this. So internet's role in brand promotion. So this is, I think most of us today are live on the internet. So what is the internet's role in brand promotion? From my standpoint, it's crucial. It's key. It's just a little bit of everything. When idea with this book was printed, the traditional media was starting to die. Things like magazines and newspapers, I definitely seen downturns. But in the last 10 years, even, we've seen, so much more of that, and at a pace that maybe couldn't have been predicted a little bit. So, that we do everything on the internet now. 10 years ago, yeah, Amazon existed, but Amazon didn't rule the world. So when we talk about selling through auction sites or selling, eBay was around at this time, but Amazon's really taken over as a retailer that you need to have a presence on Amazon. Social networking, right? Back in this time, it's I think MySpace was still around. Facebook had launched, but we didn't have things like Twitter. We didn't have things like Instagram. Those are huge impact. And this idea of Second Life, but it's really more social communities and how they've linked through social social networks, but also just gaming. That there's also these online community worlds that people live on through gaming and interacting with. You have, a 40-year-old from Cincinnati playing, the same game of, a 15-year-old in China, right? So they have that ability to communicate across the platform, wherever that might be. So it's had a definite impact on how we view the internet, how we're going to reach our customers, right? So, if they're going to be in front of a computer screen, we need to message where they're going to be. So that's where they're going to be. If they're not going to be opening up a newspaper, we don't probably want to be messaging there. So, that's definitely a decision in this process. But we also have to look at where our customers are at. So, as I say this, I have to also admit that, that's maybe a younger demographic, a demographic that is maybe getting a little older. But, I talk about, even my parents still get a newspaper. That's where they still want some stuff. So if I have a product that's specifically towards them, maybe I do need to think about those traditional medias. But then again, my parents have the internet as well and are on there all the time. So, it's an evaluation process you have to go through. Here's, just kind of a look at kind of world, the internet usages. Pretty much you can take all these numbers and double to triple them. Is where we're standing at now from 10 years ago. So the internet's kind of gone everywhere, and even in places that you wouldn't think have access to some sort of Wi-Fi capabilities. That even you look at a lot of third world countries that they have the ability through a phone to get access to online content as well. So it doesn't just have to be kind of these mainstream countries, but the percentages may stay about the same. But that also has to do with population, right? China's up there the most because China's the most populous country. So, it does play a role in that. But then again, India, I think India has actually overtaken the US. So if you were to rank this today, I think India is number 2 on this list from where it ranks out. So just take those into consideration. It's a little bit of everywhere now is kind of the takeaway from that. So media on, what do we use our internet for? Lots of different things. It started out that it was just a warehouse for information, surfing search engines that, I had a question I needed to answer. I could go Google it. That was, how you found out thing, and you went to a static page, you got your information, you absorbed it. But that's not necessarily, it's gone way beyond that now. It's the interactivity of that. You have things like, beyond chat rooms, video chats, you have, community boards, purchases, like Amazon or marketplaces that you can deal with, blogs, advice, anything and everything that we consume in today's world, we can get through some sort of internet usage, some sort of media content out there. And a lot of this, there's this idea of monetizing it. So how do you monetize these processes? And all these, they have ways of measuring that. There's things like ads built into them to help you, know where who is at your site and what they're clicking that can drive profit back to you. This is in a lot of ways, how influencers influence, right? They build a following, people see the data that's there, and click on other things maybe on their site that they promote, which help they get paid for in return. So it's important to know that this is, it's still changing. Things change every year on this. So just understand it's definitely an evolving process. So once again, here's outdated stats, right? So saying bill pay is about 30% there at the bottom. It's actually close to about 60% today. So once again, emails, it's over 90% of what people send emails. News and information, it's actually, I think it's not too much more there. It's probably just over 60 to 70%. Purchases though is skyrocketed. It's 70 to 80% of people have made some sort of online purchases as well, and the people that haven't are usually tend to fall in an older demographic. Even again, most of them have some sort of online presence as well. So understand that we interact with it in a lot of different ways. So promotion, how do we do promotion? Well, first off, we keep talking about this idea of target markets, that we want to be where people are going to be. Once again, people are online. Instead of saying, okay, doing a traditional billboard, on the commute that they're going to and from work, yeah, they might see it, but I know for a fact that if someone is on a site, I can if they're on some sort of, you call it a crafting site, they're probably interested in some sort of crafting topic. So it's a good place to target them for what they need to be, and it's also really, really trackable. Like, that's one of my favorite things about internet. So traditionally, you'd put an ad in a magazine. The publisher say, oh yeah, 100,000 people read this magazine, and you have to kind of just take it for granted, and hope he's right, and do research, and does it work out in the end? Well, with the internet and the idea of advertising and promotion through the internet is all trackable. So I have clicks. So I put an ad up there. I can target about how many people clicked on my ad. Page views, right? Internet, where people go, is tracked. If someone's on my site, if 1,000 people are on my site today, I can know that kind of information. So that's kind of the beauty of promotions through the internet. It's very, very trackable, which helps you make good decisions. That's ultimately what we're trying to do as marketers, is make good decisions. And when we have the data to support our decisions, that it's a very important thing. This also plays into the idea of this integration of marketing communications. So I can do several different things and track it. So for instance, an email campaign or a Facebook post, that I can do one of those. Okay, say I make a post on my Facebook page trying to drive people to my site. Well, I can get the integration of that is I can get real-time data. I can look at the Facebook stats, and Facebook says this many people saw it. It was a video, this many people watched the video for 3 seconds, this many people watched the video for the entire length. But then I can go to where we're trying to send them. Maybe that's a purchase page on my website, and I can look at that website and I can see, okay, was there an uptick in traffic this day? Was that thing that I did on Facebook, did it have the intended response of driving them to my page? And I can track that. It's the integration from one to the next. So it's very fluid. which is, you know, for marketers and data, what we really want to be and want to measure, because we only want to pay for results, not like traditional media advertising. Put it in the catalog. Hopefully, I'm getting results. Through internet, we can pay directly for results that we get, which is very, very nice. And you know, we'll talk about targeting. Actually, I just want to talk about targeting right now before I go on to the next slide. Because when we set up our Facebook profiles or whatever social media we're talking about, you actually self-select a lot of the demographics that you are. You say, here's where I live and the zip code, that I'm, you know, male, female, I'm this age, I like this kind of things, I like going on hikes, I like golf, I like whatever it may be. So when you do that, you self-identify yourself. So in the world of marketing too, it's not just about targeting, but it's like I can target, like say I want to target people 25 to 35 years old that play golf in a you know, in the greater you know, Highline College area. Well, I can do that through advertising on Facebook, and I can run a campaign, and I can run a campaign dirt cheap, maybe 20, 30 bucks. And I could reach those people through Facebook. So it's been a great leveling, especially for small businesses who didn't have the money like the big businesses to do the research before. So once again here, you know, here's just kind of an ad about advertising, which is kind of odd to say, but you know, there's companies out there that say we'll help you find your customers. Actually, companies like this have pretty well died down. Because of the targeting you can do through, specifically, I'm going to say like Facebook and Instagram, or any kind of social media, or even Google advertising, that a lot of this information is available to you now to run promotions directly through them without having to go through intermediaries like this, like advertising.com was. I think they're still around, but they actually don't do much anymore, because you can do it mostly yourself as a small business. You can go in, click the demographics that you want. You know, if you're trying to sell sombreros to lizards, you could, you know, if lizards were on Facebook, they would self-identify themselves, and you can run an ad to them about sombreros. It's a hypothetical case here, but it's the idea that, you know, you have that ability to select who exactly you want to reach. So what does, you know, actual advertising look? Yeah, there's paid searches. So this is often referred to as SEO now. You know, how can I get to the top of a Google search based off of the keywords that's on my website? So very, very important. I know, has anyone ever, you know, you go to Google, you want to find something. How often do you click on page 2, page 3? Not super often. Maybe the most like traditional advertising is things like banner ads, which are ads you see at the top or maybe on the side that people can click on and go to you. Sponsorships, you know, brought to you by. You see this in newsletters every now and then, but you still see it in live kind of events as well. Pop-ups, everyone hates pop-ups, but they are effective, and that's why they're still around. So they you know, they're there. An interesting thing about kind of links display and pop-ups together is, I don't know if anyone's ever heard of remarketing, but if you've ever been like on a page, and you know, say I was on Home Depot earlier this week looking at something, and I pull up my computer today, and all of a sudden that thing I was looking at Home Depot a few days ago, there's a little banner on the side of my web browser showing me that exact same product. It's called remarketing. Through tracking what you've looked at and the cookies on your computer, it shows you that again. Super effective. Although we don't like to admit that people track us, it's very, very effective. Video is kind of taken over when, you know, even at this time, like the bandwidth wasn't there for video. I don't know if everyone knows, there was actually a predecessor to YouTube that kind of came along that had YouTube's idea before YouTube ever had it. And this was about 2007, 2008. They actually failed miserably because it was a technology issue. They didn't have bandwidth to house all these videos. It wasn't until YouTube came along, was able to kind of figure out how to compress those files properly to use them. Today, we don't even think about it. We just put video on everything that we do because it's quick, it's easy, and we all carry around smartphones for the most part. We can do quick photos, quick videos, and upload everything right to where we're going to go. Home pages are, you know, websites are still super important. You know, the idea of virtual malls, shopping centers, this is going to be things like, you know, really eBay and Amazon. We don't think of them that way, but Amazon, you can go to Amazon and get everything you wanted. That was kind of the appeal of the mall back in the day, that it brought everything together. little widgets, little, think of these more as, they used to be called widgets, but really we think of them more as apps today, ways we can interact with what we're doing. Virtual worlds, specifically through gaming, are a big part of all this as well. Here's instead of just purely informational, here's kind of an interesting thing. This is a Crayola site from a while ago, and look at this today. It doesn't look like it necessarily a site that would be modern, although it's maybe for kids, so it'd be targeted that way. But there's really two reasons, in my personal opinion, two reasons why people go to websites or why they interact with a lot of this stuff, and they want to be educated or entertained. Right? So think about the websites you go to. Sometimes it's, is it a news site because you want to be educated? Is it YouTube to get a how-to video, education? But there's also, the targeting towards kids. So you can, Crayola here has you can go on here, you can get information, but you can also, maybe print off patterns that you can color, get ideas. So think about how people use your site as well. Will play an important part in this digital marketing kind of life. Establishing a website, it's super important now, and back at the time of the book publishing too, it was a fairly expensive and ordeal task. You were talking thousands and thousands of dollars, and it would take time, and you'd have to go to a programmer who would do all this for you. That's not the case today, and it's actually can be pretty cheap. There's companies out there like Wix, you've probably heard of, or GoDaddy, or WordPress.com that have these what are called WYSIWYGs, which stands for what you see is what you get, WYSIWYG. But you could go on there, create a website in an hour or two, and they're cheap. Like it's literally there's a template you can buy. It's maybe $7-10 a month to have a website. So it's pretty standard now in the way that maybe it wasn't at the time the text was written, but the way we look at those is still the same. Hits, visits, how many people are coming to my site, how many people are clicking through to pages and looking at individual pages, unique visitors, not just visitors, because that visitor, every time someone comes to your page, it would click, but a unique visitor. This was actually one of the things in the beginning of the internet. It just tracked visitors. So you'd have people the unethical side, and we'll actually talk about that here in a second, but companies that would say, oh yeah, we're going to promise you 10,000 visitors. So they would just literally have one person go to that site 10,000 times, and it would keep registering. So unique visitors, unique people coming to your site. This is all tracked through the analytics, and truthfully, it's Google Analytics who does most of this now. So if Amazon's kind of that runs the purchasing kind of mall side of aspect, Google runs a lot of this kind of web traffic. Don't let anyone ever tell you that any other search engine matters except for Google. There's Bing out there, but I think it was like the first 2 months of Bing's existence. If you tried to do a search through Bing, it would actually just go search Google and then give you what Google responded until they figured out their algorithm. So just be careful, understand that Google does run a lot of these things, and when you start learning things more about search engine optimization and how that works, it plays a role in all this as well. So here's world global economies. We talked about that in a couple chapters ago. The internet has definitely spread across not just the US marketplace, but the world marketplaces. People have access to more information, people have access to more things. So as it becomes more and more prevalent in whatever countries it is, just know that we had that slide from the beginning talking about the Chinese culture, or the Chinese population is still the number one users of a lot of this internet age kind of stuff. There is this ethics part of it too. I was kind of just mentioning about websites. Here's kind of the perfect example of it too, where they're talking about software, and there was a click, and they were noticing that a lot of the clicks weren't coming from actual people, that they were coming from someone that was trying to it's a pay-per-click kind of thing. So every time someone went into something, that they had to pay a nickel or a dime or a quarter, or whatever it is. So there's people artificially going in and boosting those numbers. So you're paying someone to do that. It's the ethics of it. Think about it. Like, someone has to pay 10 cents for every time someone clicks, but it only costs me a penny to hire someone to click it. Like, I can make 9 cents just by having someone click into a website. So that was one of the early knocks on this and those kind of pay-per-click kind of aspects. So where are we going to go from here? That's literally the $1 billion question, I guess, because things keep expanding. 10 years ago, that Wi-Fi was around, but it wasn't nearly as prevalent. Like, think of, can you go anywhere anymore? Like, I was just at Fred Meyer's, doing grocery shopping, and my daughter has my phone, and she's tagged into the Wi-Fi at Fred Meyer's. Fred Meyer's offers it now, just I guess for that reason, keeps my daughter entertained while I'm trying to shop, put headphones on her, and maybe I'm a bad dad again, I don't know. But there's everywhere has it now. That there's literally cities around that just broadcast Wi-Fi across all the public areas, and it's usually free. That a decade ago you were still having to pay for it. That people have kind of seen it as a tool that needs to be for commerce. So it's definitely something that's evolving. Is our satellites going to be? I think there's areas that do that now, where satellites just broadcast down a Wi-Fi signal across regions. Think about how the smartphone has changed us. I think that's really, if there's one big thing between when this book was published and now, it's really the idea of a smartphone. That the iPhone or the Samsung or whatever you have, that you have access to internet in your hand that you use regularly. And the variations of what happens with that. Think about apps, the Starbucks app. So Starbucks has passed a threshold where more than 50%, and it's actually close to like 65 from what I understand, of their purchases actually happen through the Starbucks app. So someone's scanning their app or pre-ordering ahead to be there, not using cash anymore. So this is like, how has that changed the idea of commerce? I mean, and so much so, like in the past, 2 years, I like Taco Time. Like, Taco Time has an app now, right? So you could do the same thing through Taco Time, and that's not a national company. That's just a Northwest company here, but they decided that was worth it for them. There's ulterior motives to it as well, that there's lots of tracking, lots of individual promotions that can come out of that as well. So, think about how that phone is going to change the world going forward. I think there's going to be a lot of there's already been a lot of changes in the last decade, and I can only imagine what a decade from now is going to look like for us. So it's definitely interesting, and it's a fun time if you're in the world of advertising marketing. It's a fun time to be practicing your trade. So just kind of closing it up here, just kind of this final kind of talk, and want to bring it back to this globalization that what we just talked about is the increase of technology here, but also what increase of technology is happening everywhere. That I do not want to get political, but that states are being able to interact with other states, and by states I mean countries, are being able to interact with other countries on the social kind of level, that the people in other countries are being able to interact, so that there's this greater global impact, that the barriers that were there and the privacy that we thought we had isn't necessarily the case. So that's a negative part of it too. So there's this whole ethical, there's this whole global, there's this whole technological aspect of what we're talking about for the internet age. So hopefully this information is helpful. Over the next few weeks, the last two kind of understanding advertising assignments are really going to delve into this idea of internet and social, and how that has an impact on advertising. So look forward to that, because it's going to be kind of more of a supplement, offering some more relevant, timely information than maybe what the book's presenting. So any questions, please let me know. Thank you.